everyone! Okay, in this video, you're going to learn beginning to end how to do this twisted tube sock. Now I used, I think it's the Pratt Unique yarn, I want to say. It's all acrylic, completely washable, dryable, very nice yarn. Now the thing about these patterns, you see how the stitches cause it to twist, it'll help it actually mold to your foot. Let's see if you guys can see. See? That's what the finished outcome looks. Now, the tools I'm using the small circle boy loom. I'm going to say 24 pegs. I've got me a little row counter rigged up on there. And I'm using little rubber bands to mark the pegs for different stitches. You can use anything you want to mark. You can use a different type of row counter if you'd like. You also want your loom tool, pair of scissors, and a crochet hook just to weave in the ends. The entire thing is done top down, no complicated decreases or anything for the cast off. I hope you guys enjoy. This tube sock is worked top down, so we'll need to do a chain cast on, but before we do that, I'm going to show you how I marked the loom. I just used rubber bands, but you can use anything you would like. So basically what I did is I marked 3, left 3 empty, marked 3, left 3 empty, marked 3 all the way around, and then every other empty set, I put a rubber band in the middle. So we have marked 3, empty, marked, empty, marked 3, empty, 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 marked 3, empty, marked, empty, marked 3, empty, empty, empty. That's all wrote out in the PDF. But the only reason I have these ones is I did something a little different with this one. This one, there's a flat stitch, there's a purl stitch, sorry, in the middle. So it's E-wrap 1, purl 1, E-wrap 1, and then on this other side it's E-wrap 1, purl 1, E-wrap 1, and the rest of these are flat stitches. These ones. So let's get started. Our cast on we are using is a chain cast on. So you make a slip knot, put over your peg 1, which is more comfortable for me to work whichever way you put your chain cast on, since you're doing it in the round. You will be working the opposite direction. Let me explain. Let me show you. I have my slip knot. The knot goes behind the peg. Try to keep the tail on the inside. Here's my slip knot. Here's my working yarn. I take my working yarn through that slip knot and tighten it up. This first one is the hardest to do. After that, they're pretty easy. You have your loop. You have 2 strands. Both strands go behind. Working yarn goes through. Both strands behind. Working yarn goes through. Both strands behind. Working yarn goes through. Do this all the way around. I'll show you how to connect it. So I worked every peg on the loom, and I just worked this last one. Now we actually want to connect these. So I take the loop, put on that peg, and tighten it up. And see how I worked around in this direction, but if you look now, the yarn is actually, looks like it's going in this direction. You will end up with a nicer seam here if you just work the way the yarn wants you to work. It's the best way I can think of to explain that. So, for this part, all of our pegs that are 3 marked, you purl. Well, every single marked peg on the loom, you will purl for the entire project. These 2, and these 2 you E-wrap. These 3, and these 3, you will flat stitch. I will try to work around with you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Let me see if this will hold my loom like this, it slips. Okay, so we have 3 marked pegs. Zoom in a little bit on this. 3 marked pegs. We are going to purl 1, purl 2, purl 3. We have that middle one marked, so we will E-wrap the first one. push that down. We will purl this middle one. We will E-wrap this one. Here are 3 marked ones again. You're going to purl, purl, and purl. See, these ones aren't marked at all, so we will just flat stitch those. And a flat stitch, you just hold it over. The reason I'm doing that is it makes it a little tighter. The E-wraps are so that it has a little more stretch to it, and then the flat stitches are so it's not going to be super airy. You want it to be nice and warm. We have 3 marked ones. Okay, and now we are back to, there's one in, oh sorry, one in the middle. So we E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, 3 marked ones, so those are all purled. And okay, now we flat stitch these last 3. Now when you get to your last one, there's 2 loops on it. That's fine. Take both off, work them together. So that is your cast on in your row 1. Now this is the cuff part. We are working cuff down. So row 1 through row 35, you do the exact same thing, and then I will show you how you start rotating it, because this is the most important part of the tube sock, because that where it twists, it helps it to form to the shape of your foot. So go ahead and work down those first 35 rows, and I'll show you what to do from there. We have our 35 rows of the cuff completed. So this is what it looks like. Now where I did the 2 spots where I E-wrap, that makes it to where the cuff and everything will actually open up a lot wider for a thicker foot. The other one, the other twisted tube sock I did, isn't perfect for a really wide foot. Now we are doing, let me pull this up here so you can see. Now we need to do the twist part. See how it's kind of spiraling around? Because that's what's going to make it kind of twist and hold to your foot. Science behind it. Something I'm not trying to think about, but I love how it works. Okay. So the PDF will be wrote out completely, and it'll be free, and it is in the video description below. But this is kind of what I'm working with right now with how I wrote out the pattern. This is my Diary of a Mad Scientist. It's where I write out all my patterns and ideas. Stitch and Bitch and Knitter's Design Journal. It's fantastic. Okay, enough of that. We're rotating the stitches 1 every 4 rows. So these were flat stitches. Let me zoom this in some. These 3 were flat stitches, so we are rotating them this way. So these 3 will be flat stitches, these 3 will be purl stitches, and so on. So we will start flat stitch, then we will purl, purl 1, purl 2, purl 3, and then we will E-wrap 1, purl 1, E-wrap 1. Now we get back, oops, sorry, now we are in to our purl stitches again. So we purl 3, sorry, this mat's kind of slick. Purl 3, and then we will flat stitch 3, and then we purl 3. So as you can see, you're just shifting them 1 stitch, which I'll go ahead and finish out this row. E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, then we got a knit 3, oops, and see, and after that final knit 3, we only have, oops, sorry, after that final knit 3, we have 2 empty that were initially flat stitched, but they're all in sections of 3, so those 3 will be flat stitched, and that puts you back at your first one. So I will go ahead and do that. Flat stitch, flat stitch, flat stitch. Let's move to row 36, but what I'm actually doing is I'm going to restart my counter, and that can be row 1 since I'm doing this in sets of 4. So you're going to do 4 rows like that, and then you'll switch it 1 more to where it will be flat stitch 2, then purl 3. Then the next set of 4 will be flat stitch 3, purl 3. It just switches 1 peg, just 1 stitch, whatever's right here. This is how I keep track of. Whatever this last stitch right here is, I move that stitch forward 1. So for the next round, it's going to be a flat stitch, so I'll move that flat stitch 1, then it'll be a flat stitch, and then it'll be a purl stitch, and then it'll be a purl stitch. Hope that makes sense. Now, all together, did I not write down how many rounds? I didn't. Let me check. You will do that rotate 11 times every 4 rows. Now, if you lose track of where you're at, let me zoom this out. If you lose track of where you're at, this is something you can do. You can pull it, you can pull it up your sleeve and count, like these E-wrap rows. See, there's your cuff. You can see these little lines. You just count those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you do 12 sets, sorry. You do 12 sets, and then I will show you once you are done with the body. It's actually 48 rows altogether. Do 4 rows of flat stitch. After that point, wrap the working yarn about 2.5 to 3 times around the loom and cut it. The cast off we're going to be doing is the flat top pull string cast off. It's a fairly simple one to do. Zoom in. So basically what you do is you pull the working yarn, or your tail in, through a loom, through a stitch, take it off the peg, run the working yarn behind the next peg, pull it through, take it off. You do this all the way around the loom, just doing every other peg. Once you're back at the beginning, double check, make sure you've done every other peg. Now we just done this peg right here. We're going to skip that one and go to the next. And just as you do it, just go ahead and pull them off the loom. Do this all the way around the loom until everything is off the loom, and I'll show you how to close off the toe. It is off the loom now. Here is the fun part, because what you do is you pull this tight, but you have 2 circles of the working yarn to kind of pull through and tighten it all up. So I use my fingers just to make sure I don't tighten up one side and not the other. And once I get it about as far as I think I can, actually flip, I guess I can zoom out now, flip the entire sock inside out. And as you will see, that outer circle is completely tightened up, and as I do this, it will tighten up that inner circle. Give you a very thick, should be a very warm toe doing it this way. On this sock, I did a couple decreases before, and as you can see, there's holes through here. So I changed it up a little bit so that you don't have those holes now. At this point, you just take, you can cut your string. You only need just a couple inches. Weave in the end, go up here, take your crochet hook, weave in the ends, and you are done. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. There is a direct link for the matching PDF in the video description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and make sure you have notifications turned on so that you will have emails sent whenever I have a new video out.